What's up, Bills Mafia? What an incredible night it was yesterday. Our Buffalo Bills showed exactly why they're one of the strongest teams in the league. It was grit, it was heart, and it was pure emotion from start to finish. The defense stood tall, the offense was sharp, and the fans went crazy with every single play. A victory that fills us with pride and gives us even more confidence for the rest of the season. If you celebrated this win as much as I did, make sure to smash that like button because it really supports our work and helps spread the passion for the Bills even further. And of course, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any analysis, reactions, and breakdowns about our team. Let's dive into all the details of this huge game together. Let's go, Bills. Think about this for a second. Just 2 weeks into the NFL season, the Buffalo Bills might already have shifted the balance of power in the AFC. That 30-10 win over the New York Jets didn't just look good when the clock hit zero. It looks even better now after what we saw across the league. And the deeper you dig into that performance, the more you realize this wasn't some lucky bounce or one-off explosion. This was a statement, and maybe even a warning to the rest of the NFL.
The biggest story? The defensive line. Buffalo rolled into Week 2 without Ed Oliver, their disruptive anchor, sidelined after an ankle injury in practice. Losing Oliver could have been devastating, especially against the Jets' offensive line that just 1 week earlier bullied the Pittsburgh Steelers. But instead of folding, the Bills' defensive front dominated, and it started with the edge rushers. Joey Bosa, on only 26 snaps, recorded 6 pressures, a sack, and 2 forced fumbles. That is absurd efficiency. Every time he lined up, it felt like the Jets were bracing for impact. And he wasn't alone. A.J. Epenesa piled up 4 pressures and delivered punishing hits on the quarterback while clogging up rushing lanes. Greg Rousseau, meanwhile, gave Armin Mayu headaches all game, adding both a sack and a pressure of his own. The Jets simply had no answers for that trio. But what really jumps out is how the Bills adjusted. Instead of sticking with a heavier rotation, they slimmed down to a 3-man edge rusher set, Bosa, Epenesa, and Rousseau, while moving Javon Solomon inside for limited snaps. It was strategic, it was aggressive, and it worked. And then, you factor in what the interior line did without Oliver. Coin Jones stepped into a massive role as the one tech, while young talents like T.J. Sanders and Deion Walker made their presence felt. Walker actually earned more defensive tackle snaps than Sanders because the Bills expected a heavy Jets rushing attack. The move paid off, with Walker and Jones muddying up the middle of the field and cutting off New York's ground game. And remember, Buffalo isn't even at full strength yet. After Week 6, they'll add free agent signings Michael Hocht and Larry Ogunjobi once their suspensions are served. Veterans of that caliber, combined with the reps young players are earning now, could transform this defensive line from solid into downright terrifying. If this is what they can do shorthanded, what happens when they're fully loaded? The coaching staff deserves credit too. Defensive coordinator Bobby Babich didn't sit back. He tinkered with alignments, flipped the traditional strong/weak side setups, and let his guys prove themselves in different looks. It's that kind of adaptability that turns a good defense into a great one. Week 1's run defense issues were glaring, but by Week 2, the corrections were already visible. That's growth you can't ignore. And if you think this was all just a Jets problem, look around the league. Buffalo's upcoming opponents? A combined 2-12 record after Week 2. The Dolphins look like a mess, a team that may have already quit on head coach Mike McDaniel. The Saints are 0-2, struggling against mediocre competition. The Patriots needed everything they had to edge Miami and still don't look convincing. Even the Falcons, while tricky, are far from unbeatable. The Chiefs sit at 0-2, but anyone in Buffalo knows better than to think Kansas City is really down. Still, aside from that matchup and maybe Atlanta, this schedule looks ripe for the taking. That's why this win feels bigger than just another early season result. The Bills are already sitting at 2-0, but given how the calendar lines up, it's not crazy to think about them being 7-1 or even 9-1 by the time Week 10 rolls around. And that's not just fan optimism, it's a realistic projection if this team continues to grow like they did from Week 1 to Week 2. Even the national picture is breaking Buffalo's way. Joe Burrow, one of the biggest threats in the AFC, is out for at least 3 months with a turf toe injury that required surgery. The Bengals matchup is set for December 7th. If Burrow does rush back, it'll be his very first game back from injury, a massive disadvantage against a hungry Buffalo defense. If he doesn't play, the Bills' path gets even smoother. So, let's put it all together. Buffalo goes out in Week 2, shorthanded, against the Jets team that had bullied one of the NFL's toughest defenses just a week earlier. They dominate up front, prove their young defensive linemen can adapt, show their coaching staff can adjust, and set themselves up with one of the softest upcoming schedules in the league. Add in the looming reinforcements on the defensive line, and suddenly the Buffalo Bills aren't just 2-0, they're looking like a team that could seize control of the AFC before the season even hits the halfway mark. But here's the real question, Mafia, how confident are you in this defensive line after what you just saw? Was this a one-time performance against the Jets, or do you believe Joey Bosa, A.J. Epineza, Greg Rousseau, and the rest of this crew are about to turn into the backbone of this team? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know where your confidence meter stands, from 1 to 100. And think about this, the Bills have barely scratched the surface of what this defense can become. Joey Bosa's dominance is almost expected at this point. He's a superstar, but the real storyline is how the younger players are stepping up and carving out bigger roles. A.J. Epineza looks like he's finally hitting that stride fans have been waiting for, not just showing up in the stat sheet but doing the dirty work that doesn't always get recognition. He's collapsing running lanes, setting edges, and forcing quarterbacks into bad decisions. Greg Rousseau is still growing, but his length and power are a nightmare for tackles. When you've got multiple guys consistently winning one-on-ones, it changes everything for the secondary. Suddenly quarterbacks have to rush throws, and that creates opportunities for turnovers. And while the defensive front is stealing headlines, let's not forget what this means for the team's confidence overall. Momentum in football is contagious. When a defense comes out swinging like that, it feeds the offense. Josh Allen and company didn't even need to be perfect against the Jets because the defense was giving them short fields and stalling drives before they ever got going. A team that can win on both sides of the ball doesn't just contend, they intimidate. And the vibe around this Bills team right now is intimidation. Look ahead just a bit. Thursday night against the Miami Dolphins could be another statement game. Miami looks lost. Players seem checked out on Mike McDaniel, and the offense that was once the talk of the league suddenly can't get it together. On a short week, facing a defense that's growing hungrier by the snap, that's the kind of setup where Buffalo doesn't just win, they embarrass. Don't be surprised if this turns into a blowout, the type of win that gets national media talking about the Bills as the team to beat in the AFC. And let's be real, if the Dolphins fold again on primetime, how much longer can McDaniel survive? That's the level of pressure Buffalo could be applying here. Then there's the Saints, winless, struggling, failing to beat Kyler Murray in Week 1 or Mac Jones in Week 2. If you can't handle that, how do you expect to stop Josh Allen? This isn't just a favorable matchup. It's one of those games where anything short of a double-digit victory would be disappointing. After that, the Patriots. And while it's still a rivalry game, and those can always get tricky, what do the Patriots really have right now? A young quarterback in Drake May who's not fully developed and a roster that feels overhyped. The Bills will be wearing rivalry jerseys in that one, and there's a sense around the team that losing that game just wouldn't be acceptable. But here's where things get truly fascinating. The Atlanta Falcons and the Kansas City Chiefs. Atlanta has pieces, Bijan Robinson is electric, and their defense has shown flashes of creativity, but they're still not a complete team. Kansas City, on the other hand, is Kansas City. Forget the record, forget the early struggles. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are still the boogeymen of the AFC. For Buffalo to truly shed that shadow, they need to take down Kansas City head-to-head. That's the game fans have circled, and it could be the one that tells us whether this Bills team is simply good or destined for something more. And don't underestimate the psychological advantage Buffalo has right now. The Chiefs are 0-2, the Bengals just lost Joe Burrow for months, and the rest of the AFC isn't exactly terrifying. If the Bills can stack wins, stay healthy, and keep building this defensive identity, they could secure playoff positioning earlier than we've seen in years. Imagine going into December with the AFC East practically locked up, playing for seeding instead of survival. That's a luxury only true contenders earn. Even the timing of Burrow's injury feels like it's working in Buffalo's favor. December 7th against Cincinnati could have been one of those season-defining showdowns. Instead, it might be another opportunity to cement themselves atop the conference. Sure, Burrow might rush back early, but a first game off surgery against this defensive line? That's a tough ask, even for an elite quarterback. And if he doesn't play, the Bills suddenly hold an even bigger edge in that matchup. So where does all of this leave us? The Bills are 2-0, yes, but they're not just 2-0. They're 2-0 with a defense that just proved it can dominate without its best interior linemen. They're 2-0 with reinforcements waiting in the wings. They're 2-0 staring down one of the softest schedules in football. And they're 2-0 in an AFC landscape that's suddenly wide open. This isn't hype, it's opportunity. The kind of opportunity franchises wait decades for. But opportunity only matters if you capitalize on it. And that's where I'll leave it to you, Bills Mafia. Do you believe this team has what it takes to not just win games, but to finish? Is this the year the Bills stop chasing and start dictating? I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think Buffalo's record will be heading into Week 10? And how confident are you that this defense is for real? Drop your predictions, argue your points, and let's see where the Mafia stands right now. Because here's the thing, Mafia, every season we've been waiting for that one sign that the Bills aren't just contenders, they're inevitable. And this feels different. You can sense it in the way the defensive line is playing, in how Bobby Babich is calling games, and in how the locker room is responding to adversity. Remember, Ed Oliver's injury could have been the kind of setback that derails early season momentum. Instead, it became the spark for players like Deion Walker and Coin Jones to prove they belong. That's not just depth, it's culture. When backups step in and perform like starters, it tells you a team is built for the long haul. What makes this even more exciting is the creativity we're seeing from the coaching staff. They're not afraid to experiment. They didn't just plug in replacements and hope for the best. They redesigned alignments, rotated snap counts strategically, and found ways to put their guys in the best possible situations. For example, sliding Javon Solomon into interior work on passing downs wasn't obvious, but it gave Buffalo fresh looks that kept the Jets guessing. These aren't moves you see from a staff that's tentative or reactive. This is forward-thinking football, and that's exactly what separates teams in January. Now, let's shift to the offense for a second. While the defense is grabbing headlines, Josh Allen benefits the most from what's happening. A defense that can flip field position and create chaos buys the offense room to breathe. Allen doesn't have to force throws. He doesn't need to play hero ball every snap. He can be efficient, take what the defense gives him, and still know his defense has his back. That balance is something we haven't consistently seen during Allen's career, and it could be the difference between another close but not enough season and a real Super Bowl run. And that brings us to the bigger picture. Look at the AFC landscape right now. The Dolphins look broken. The Patriots are uninspiring. The Bengals are in trouble without Joe Burrow. The Chiefs are struggling to find their rhythm. The Ravens and Jaguars have talent, but neither looks unbeatable. There's a window here, Mafia, and it's wide open. If the Bills keep stacking wins, they're not just competing for a playoff spot, they're positioning themselves for home field advantage. Imagine the road to the Super Bowl going through Buffalo. Imagine freezing winds whipping through Orchard Park in January, with opponents who aren't built for that kind of grind. That's not just an advantage, it's a weapon. And don't underestimate what this kind of dominance does for the psyche of the fan base. You can feel it, right? Every big play from Joey Bosa, every stop from Coin Jones, every sack from Rousseau, it feels like fuel. It's a reminder that this team isn't chasing respect anymore. They're demanding it, and the league is starting to notice. When national conversations shift from "Are the Bills for real?" to "Can anyone stop them?", you know something has changed. But here's the question we all need to wrestle with. What happens when this team hits adversity again? Because it will come. Maybe it's Kansas City in Week 6. Maybe it's an unexpected slip against Atlanta. Maybe it's an injury to a key player. The true test won't be what they do in a perfect game against a struggling Jets team. It'll be how they respond when the script flips. That's when we'll know if this is the year. So let me throw it back to you. Are you buying in? Do you see this as the start of something special? Or are you pumping the brakes until the Bills beat a team like the Chiefs head-to-head? How high is your confidence in this group right now? 70, 80, 100 out of 100? Let's hear it. Mafia. Are we watching the foundation of a Super Bowl run? Or just another hot start that fizzles out? Because from where I'm standing, this doesn't look like hype. It looks like destiny.